So expectations is a fun thing to talk about with Auburn because it's one of the big programs, and they make a lot of noise when things are right there. So Hugh Freeze is now there, not 1 year, not 2 years, multiple years in. And they turned the ball over a lot last year. They go get Jackson Arnold. So everyone's been asking, all right, so like what's fair? What should we expect? What I appreciated from Hugh Freeze when he was at SEC Media Days is I was listening to him as soon as he got out of the Mercedes Sprinter van and walked in here this morning, did his first interviews. They were asking him, what do you think fair expectations are? And he said, we ought to be competing for a playoff spot. The people ought to expect that out of us. I expect that out of us. Now, of course, the catch-22, the Chicken Little approach to that is, you need to be careful because they're going to throw that back in your face come November. Look, this is the Auburn job. When you're multiple years in at the Auburn job, they're going to throw it in your face whether you publicly stated your expectations or not. But I'm going to continue to hammer home on this. To an extent, it's kind of the similar theme with Oklahoma. It's one thing if you had a bad year the year before because your players were bad. Your organization was rotten. Your staff didn't measure up. That's not necessarily Auburn. And so you need to understand when that staff first got there, I remember being there the first spring, they laid it out. They laid out the personnel plan. They laid out their strategic mapping of how they think they'll need things to go in order to compete, and it was get us to year 3. Well, here we are. Okay, so it's year 3. I'm not necessarily sure the quarterback position has played out exactly how they wanted it, but you got a guy who out of high school everyone expected to be good. He wasn't last year, nor was his situation good last year. So Jackson Arnold comes in. Maybe this is, as opposed to the oil and water mix he had at Oklahoma, maybe it's a perfect meshing of personnel and system this year. Point being, if Auburn, gets into November and they're in contention, it's not because they lucked their way into it. Certainly the turnover margin has to be different this year, but there were some Ole Miss years where Ole Miss under Hugh Freeze performed very admirably. They turned the ball over. It's kind of just what his teams have done. I'm not saying that hey, Hugh's running the turnover offense, but he asks his quarterbacks to make pretty split-second decisions. He's going to make Jackson Arnold do that this year. They know no other way to play. I think people may look at him and say, you're going to run the ball a little bit more this year? Well, they had Jarquez Hunter last year. They did what they did with him last year. Hugh Freeze is going to run his offense. They could have the most underrated receiver room in the country because since people don't expect big things from Auburn, they're not looking at the individual personnel groupings at Auburn. But if you're wrong about them, if they go pop Baylor 38-20 in week 1, that's the moment where everyone says, oh, did you know Auburn had all these receivers here? Did you know that offensive line played pretty good? Hey, that defense is taking a little bit of a step. It shouldn't be a mystery or it shouldn't shock you if it happens. They've recruited pretty good players. It's just been a step off of, the Georgias and Texases of the world. But the Auburn, the Auburn program, the Auburn job, again, I keep talking about the expectation thing only because Hugh Freeze has brought it up. If they're not giving you time, if they're not giving you resources, if you don't have access to talent, it's unfair for me to expect you to compete against the teams that do have access to that. But you've got all those things at Auburn. Just like Brian Kelly's got it at LSU. It's like Heupel's got it at Tennessee. So it's not a charity event. These guys aren't doing this on a volunteer basis. They're being paid, in some cases, 8 figures per year or thereabouts to win football games. And I know they'll come in here and talk about academics and they'll talk about developing the player on and off the field. That all works downstream. The wins come along with that because when you're doing it the right way, it's all in one bright, beautiful, in Auburn's case, orange and blue package. I look forward to Auburn because they're as big a wild card team as any team in the SEC, and they don't have this schedule where you look at it and you go, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they don't really play a game until week 5. They go to Baylor on a Friday night in week 1, and I can't wait.